to see some serious miracles to believe, I guess. I don't know, man. I guess that's apparently not enough for him. I don't know. That's pretty nuts that happened, though. That the storm split going around the White House, all right? That's pretty crazy. And so I thought that was a little bit of a sign. I feel like when he dedicated America back to God, what was it, around a month ago, that he did it right. Like, he didn't, like, play games. He didn't bring in a rabbi and an imam or something like that. He didn't do any of that. And you had Marco Rubio saying that we literally dedicated America back to the Christian God, Jesus. And then on top of that, he had Rumi, the guy who played Jesus in The Chosen, speaking at the event. It was very obviously correct dedication back to God. And so to me, I think God sees that as a good sign. And look, obviously God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, as people say. God clearly can do whatever he wants, but God honors free will. So if you choose for him to be in your country, that gives him permission to do more stuff. He could do it anyways if he wanted to, but he honors free will. So if you say, we don't want you here, he ain't going to be there, right? You're going to lose your hand of protection. But with us dedicating America back to God, I believe we're starting to see things change. And it's really interesting, actually, because we're now seeing this happen in Europe as well. Could it be like we're rubbing off on them? They're wanting to literally deport all these, of course, illegals back. And we're also having all these Europeans come over for the World Cup, and they're shocked at what they see in America. And I've covered that already on one video recently. And I think I might have a clip or two here I'm going to cover in a little bit on that as well. Yeah, I do. I got one at least. But check this out. So, largest fireworks show in history. President announced our nation's salute to America's celebration on July 4th to mark America's 250th birthday. It will feature historic military flyovers, largest ceremonial military ensemble ever assembled, largest fireworks display in history, and of course, President Donald J. Trump will be headline it all. The event will take place on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. You won't want to miss it. Reserved today. Yeah, okay. So this is awesome. And he mentioned, like, what was it, a year ago, that we're going to even do a world, what is it? It's a world fair. We're going to do the world fairs like they did 100 years ago. That'll be pretty awesome as well. But here we have Trump literally walking in to the G7 saying he's the boss, okay?
Thank you, dear colleague.
So I think Starmer needs to take some cues from our president, man, because, at least Macron, I think, has a little bit more respect in Trump's eyes. Starmer, though, Keir Starmer, like, he at first wouldn't shake his hand. You could see him kind of in the corner. He was literally standing next to him, and he just almost ignored him at first. But he did eventually shake his hand. But with what Keir Starmer's been doing of recent with the laws in his own country, people are starting to see that in a negative light, particularly if you look at the stats for all the countries arresting people for social media posts. UK's top. Matter of fact, UK's not only the top, you can take the UK and in their amount of arrests, and you can take the next 9 underneath it, including China, all of them, add them all up, and it's about equal to what UK has done in the last year. That's what's going on in the UK currently. And they just passed their 16, what was it? It's not the Online Safety Act, it's something else where they just passed it to where you have to be, if you're 16 or younger, you can't access certain social media websites, and it goes into effect, I think, December 10th, if I recall correctly. And like, from what I could tell, when they asked students, those that are 16 or under, what they thought, none of them seemed happy. At least the ones that videos I've seen of it. All of them tend to be probably in the 15, 16 range if you were asking. But they didn't seem to be very happy about it, okay? But there's another factor to it, which a lot of people are not aware of, and we're going to get into that as we get farther in this video, what is going on there, okay? First of all, let me show you this. This is a European in America. Check this out.
My entire life about America.
America.
I feel like I've been lied to my entire life about America.
America, it is happening. You see it. People who want America to travel to the World Cup are realising they've been lied to. Before travelling to America, foreigners would just think America is this place they would hear about on the news all the time. It's a horrible place. But when you strip that back, like I've been doing for years, travelling America, so many different states, you realise the beauty of America, the different cultures, how amazing the people are. And the World Cup has allowed people outside of America to see America through their own eyes, not through their country's media eyes. This is incredible, and I couldn't be happier for America.
Now think about that. So they just made a law that if you're under 16, you're not going to be able to look at any social media like YouTube, Instagram, X, Kick, Twitch. You can look at YouTube Kids. That's about it. You can't go to any of the other websites. All you can watch is the mainstream news, which he just told you, at least in his case, gives you a negative light on America when it's not even true. Once they come here, they all realize, wait a second, we were told this is a bad place. But America's actually a nice place. It's kind of weird.
World is realizing when you strip back the negativity you get and you realize how beautiful America really is.
So you get the idea. It's kind of interesting. It's like instead of just realizing your message is not working there in the UK, that you guys in charge are not doing your best job in the world, and that people are rejecting it, instead you're just like, no, we just need to pass laws and stop things from happening and arrest people when they say stuff we don't like, right? No, it's not going to work out. I guarantee it's going to backfire. It's going to backfire so spectacularly, it's going to be all completely undone. As you're now seeing in the European Union, let me show you this. They're literally chanting, send them back. European Union, we're talking the parliament there. We're talking the liberals in the European Union are now saying, send them back. It's over. Legals, send them back. And I just played a clip on my other channel, Belgium. If you add up all the immigrants of the last decade, he was saying it's like 70+% if you count the illegals, the legals, and the children of both. That's how many. That's the percentage of people there. 70-something%. And the actual Belgians that originated there, say 50 years ago, they're a small percentage now, apparently, in that country, which is kind of amazing. But before we go any further, check out Food Supply, 25-year shelf life. Link is in the description for it, my friends. They got lots of awesome packages available, as low as $20, as high as $3,000 if you want a year's worth. This book here, The Lost Ways, How Your Great-Great-Grandfather Lived Without Electricity, How to Build a Cellar, Do Things Around the House as they did in the good old days. You might need that book. If the power goes out for an extended period of time, get the printed version, $37, link below. Go check out our other links below. We're on Rumble, X, a lot of places. Let's get back to the video. So, of course, we got also this story, and this might explain a few things. So, you saw this guy's statement about all these people from the World Cup coming here, realizing America is not what they've been told. It's an awesome place. Loving our southern hospitality, loving our food, seeing our big stores, visiting people in other cities in America, New Jersey, loving the people here. The thing is, though, is over back in the UK, in Europe, this is why they're now saying send them back, my friends. This document just came out about the gangs there in Europe, particularly Muslim ones. Not all of them, but some of them for sure. And how they're getting away with doing a lot of huge crimes. 250,000, of course, women. And also the younger. We're talking in the UK only. That's just in the UK alone. And they were doing very, very terrible things, my friends. And they were not getting punished for it. A lot of these people would get let off with light sentences, in some cases even no sentences. And this just came out. Could this be part of the reason why the European Parliament is now saying send back the, of course, illegals? I'm guessing that is the case, because it is very bad. Some of the stuff it says in here, some people are even talking about Jeffrey and the Island and comparing the two. And it's just as bad. It really is that bad when you hear about some of the stuff that was going on in Europe. Particularly against white, Christian, of course, girls, this stuff was happening. And we're talking even younger, right? It's just really insane. And that's been going on for a very, very long time. I remember hearing about it like a decade ago and hearing people talk about it on social media a decade ago. Back then, though, it was something that, wasn't very well known, and now it's obviously much more known than back then. So you see now it's finally gotten to the top echelon of society in Europe that even the European Parliament now is like getting involved, wanting to send back, I think it's millions. I don't know how many people it is, but it is a lot. We're talking potentially millions of illegals. Kind of like what you saw happening here, although it hasn't been happening as much here anymore. We need to get that going again here so that we have these illegals, of course, gone in our country and bring up the birth rate again, because that is the right route to solving this problem. And this is what I've been saying for a long time. You have here a UK officer apologizes for stopping gospel singer on Oxford Street. This woman here, UK policewoman, I remember this video from, it was over a year ago apparently. She was saying you can't sing a gospel song on the street. You have to be on church property premises. She has now apologized for this. She has apologized that she was wrong. Her name is Officer Maya, I can't even say her last name, who wrongly insisted church songs couldn't be sung outside church grounds amidst local busking rules. The Metropolitan Police reviewed the footage, apologized for the mistake, what is it, a year later? Classified the public religious expression as protected under UK law, though performers in Westminster need a license. So that's kind of, at least they're admitting that they got something wrong there. So that's a good sign, right? But you have, of course, also recently, under Keir Starmer, this new social media ban for those under 16, which apparently a lot of parents are on board with in the UK, although it seems like a lot of the younger people are not liking it. And I think a lot of it comes back to what a lot of adults don't realize when they're approving of this. It's not about that factor of protecting the kids that is the concern. That actually is, everyone wants to do that, I think, or most people want to do that. I want to protect the kids, of course, you do too, but that's not really the issue. The issue is all the people in the UK now have to use a driver's license, prove they're over 16 to get on a website. You see what I'm getting at? So it's about you, also the adult, having to give up privacy to just simply get on the internet. And then on top of that, they have a lot of people getting arrested in the UK for social media posts, which is higher than any other country from what I've seen. Matter of fact, they're saying the cumulative is higher than, if you even added all the next 9 together, it's about equal. Like China has like this much, and UK has this much. China, a communist country, is arresting less people for social media posts than the UK, with also 10 times, or maybe more than 10 times the population. They got way bigger population, and they got like a fraction of the rest. And it's a communist country. Or at least partially pseudo-communist, whatever it is now. I know they got some sort of capitalistic aspect to them as well. But they do have communist leadership, if I recall correctly still. That's pretty insane that you have a democracy doing more arrests of social media posts than a communist country. I might show you something ain't right. You know what I mean? At any rate, that's my video. Kind of what I'm seeing you guys think. Let me know in the comments section below, and thanks for watching.
Disaster happens. Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and no, this is not actually a negative video towards Xbox. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, I think Microsoft needs to just drop the old Xbox and let them partner off and do whatever they need to. Ladies and gentlemen, I love video games, and to be fair with you, one of my favorite video game consoles has been the Xbox 360. You know, growing up with the old 360, hanging out with the boys on the party chats, playing that Halo 3 custom lobbies, those are memories that I hold near and dear to my heart. And unfortunately, I can't say that these days I'm actually much of an Xbox gamer. The last Xbox game that I bought was like Forza Horizon 6 on Steam, and I couldn't even remember the last time I engaged in a purchase with Xbox since then. Probably with like Halo Infinite. When Microsoft jacked up its prices for Game Pass, you know, I pulled out because I realized I don't really use it all that much, and honestly, I'm not going to contribute to the subscription hell that we're living under, where a lot of these companies have realized that instead of giving us ownership to our software, they're just gonna take it away and give us subscription services so we perpetually rent our stuff forever. I have not been a huge fan of Xbox since they've absolutely demolished their entire physical marketplace. So for instance, when I purchase video games, I tend to buy them physically on disc, cartridge, whatever. Now the reality is a lot of game companies are kind of moving towards a scenario where you're not necessarily buying complete games on disc. With the vast majority of PlayStation games, what you buy on the disc actually is theirs a 1.0 version. When you purchase certain games on a Nintendo Switch 2 or the Switch, you get access to a game key. Not a game key card, you actually get access to the whole ass game on the cartridge. Instead of connecting it to the internet and downloading the vast majority of information, the novel concept is what you pay for at the fucking store shows up in your hands. Now when you purchase an Xbox game physically, and again, physically in the sense that is it even actually still there, or do they still actually even have publicly available physical stands for Xbox? There's this one photo from like a year ago where like somebody showed that you could purchase some consoles, and unfortunately most of the games are now these prepaid like cards that you just sort of purchase. They like validate them, and then you go home, put the code in, and you download the fucking game over. Even if you buy a disc from Xbox, the most of the times that disc will not have the game in it whatsoever. You know, I had to wait. I'm gonna show you something really quickly. It's crazy to think that one of Xbox's best games, which from Bethesda, Indiana Jones, the only physical complete version, is the Switch 2, the system with arguably the most game key cards that I've ever seen. I don't know, I live in fucking insanity land here. So honestly, Xbox has made terrible decisions. I think back when the original E3 disaster happened with Don Matrick, where they showed Price is Right and all that shit, and how Xbox had these online-only policies, you know, underneath people like Phil Spencer, I really think that this has reached a point where Xbox has been completely tarnished, I think, by Microsoft. And here's the thing, I think Microsoft is one of these companies that has sort of contributed to the hell that Xbox is kind of in. So anyways, I've been kind of holding off on talking about this. I've seen other content creators talk about, oh, is Xbox getting into a renaissance? Is it coming back? So a lot of this is actually happening because of their new CEO. For anybody that doesn't know, this is Asha Sharma. Back when I was like looking into her taking over Xbox, she came from like the AI divisions at Microsoft, and I was like, oh fuck, please God no. But actually, in reality, she's done a pretty good job of like making small steps towards actually like strengthening Xbox. The reality is though, any fucking CEO that isn't Phil Spencer is better. Dog, this half-empty can of seltzer water could do a better fucking job piloting Xbox than Phil fucking Spencer, if you catch my drift, okay? So anyways, they posted this letter, and it's a pretty scathing, realistic letter of where the fuck Xbox kind of is. So after an 8-month decline for Game Pass, remember when they upped the prices and everyone was like rightfully pissed? They finally said shit has started to kind of grow again. But here's the reality of it, right? A vast majority of players play Xbox and their games each year, and they play them on consoles, PCs, mobile, and streaming. So PC specifically, Xbox is not just exclusive to their hardware. When you play an Xbox game, like when I was playing Forza, I did not play it on an actual Xbox console. I played it underneath my Linux computer. I also played it on a Steam Deck, because I guess at this point, anything is a fucking Xbox. So at this point, ladies and gentlemen, what they also kind of talk about here is that they're going to end this year at a 3% accountability margin, right? So over the past year, they've spent over $20 billion on investments in content, platform, and subsidizing hardware. Because yes, when you purchase an Xbox at a store, Microsoft is taking a fucking loss, because that's how expensive shit has gotten. Annual revenue has declined nearly $500 million. Going forward, that just can't continue. It's unsustainable. It's a bad business model. So we are in a hardware component crisis. When I joined as a CEO, the price we paid for console storage components were over 2 times as high as we paid last fall's. These costs have also since then doubled. And as we plan for 2027, we expect another significant increase, taking over 5 times the prices we paid only 2 years earlier. So yeah, everything is not only expensive, but here's the reality of the situation. This is why I say Microsoft should just cut fucking Xbox loose. Because think about it like this. Microsoft is like an oil company, and Xbox is like a fucking solar systems energy division underneath them. The two businesses do not make fundamental sense. What I'm saying here is Microsoft as a company, big Microsoft, the big guy above, right? The company that owns Xbox, their business is entirely dependent on making all of these hardware prices expensive for us. You know, it's why I've been talking about AI slop being bad for all of us, because not only is it just destroying the fucking internet, but companies like Microsoft's entire business models is selling AI to every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there in the world. They are the reason. Your boss is the reason why your expenditures are as high. Could you imagine going into a fucking meeting, like your Xbox's CEO, and you have to go talk with the other fucking like big business heads? Like you got to talk with Microsoft proper, and you know Microsoft proper's like, you know, why is it that you know you're bitching about hardware costs, man? I mean, just find a way to make the Xbox cheap. I think I would lose my fucking shit and smear crap all over the fucking walls in pure insanity if I ever had to be in a meeting where I had to talk to the person bending me over the fucking table and sticking their dick deep inside me and telling them, no sir, actually, if you stop fucking me in the ass, maybe I'll be able to do my job a little bit better, right? I'm just saying, by the way. Xbox has also spent so much money in the process of like buying all these studios that the bean counters at Microsoft proper, like, okay, so you made us spend like $80 billion fucking dollars. That $80 billion could have went towards other, you know, AI shit that actually makes us money, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, Xbox is not really the biggest moneymaker, and never really has been for Microsoft. For Microsoft, it's selling Azure subscriptions, Windows subscriptions, or basically anything to do with their Office subscriptions, anything to do with the big boy moneymakers that are well above Xbox, right? You know, when you go to the Xbox Player Voice, which is the one place where Xbox people can just go in, drop their fucking statements and tell Xbox what they want, you'll see some of the top mentions they have are exclusives. So ultimately, they're like, Xbox is built off great exclusives. You can't sell consoles without a reason to buy the console compared to your competition. And here's the thing, as much as I agree with this, Xboxes do not sell as much as they need to justify an exclusive. The vast majority of people that I've talked to and recently are playing a lot of their Xbox games, not just on Xbox, but most of them on PlayStations whenever they get a port, or again, most importantly, PCs, right? To get rid of the PlayStation market is already damaging. But a real exclusive would also mean you get rid of the PC market, which ultimately means that you want to limit access to people who are just on a bad selling console to just exclusively play games. And that would make sense if your games also didn't reportedly cost about $500 million to make. Now, I don't know the reality of some of these prices, but there was murmurs that Halo cost around $500 million, and there's even talks now that a Gears of War game may have, the new Gears, might be like $400 fucking million. Now, here's the thing. I love Gears of War. Arguably, this is the only Xbox game that I'm really excited for. Not really Elder Scrolls. I kind of don't fucking trust anything Bethesda's doing. But Gears of War, I'm ready for it. But here's the thing. That game could be the best, highest rated game imaginable, but with a reported budget of $400 million, that basically means that they're going to take the franchise and once again put it in the fucking closet and forget about it until the cobwebs start forming around. Because no matter how good your game is, you're not making $400 million back, okay? There's only like one game that I can think of right now that is actually able to make back the ridiculous expenditure, and that's probably just like GTA 6, okay? That's that game, and that's literally only possible because that game is just on a different level of hype around it, okay? That's probably the only game that I can think of that'll do that. You know, this era of like every AAA game costing hundreds of millions of dollars to produce is so fucking unsustainable that, you know, ultimately, if this doesn't invoke a crash, I don't know what will. And not only is, you know, a crash isn't really even the worst thing, because I think for a lot of, you know, what we can say, gaming will always exist in some way or form, but AAA gaming's gotta like fucking slice and trim its budgets down. Otherwise, it's so unsustainable, especially in a market where nowadays indie games that are developed by small groups, that are developed by people that, you know, really do understand what gaming is about, are vastly competing with some of these AAA stuff out there in the industry. You know, it's almost representative of like, if you ever look into like Shenmue, for instance, right? Like Shenmue is one of those games where, you know, I made a video on it. I still do want to definitely cover the second game, but the reality of it is it's one of the most expensive projects at Sega. And the reality of this is that Sega spent so much money that it didn't directly bankrupt Sega, but it definitely hurt them financially enough to the point where the company had to go through that rough period. For anybody that doesn't remember, Sega used to make actual hardware. You know, you used to have things like the Dreamcast, the Saturn. You used to have like actual Sega hardware, right? Like back in the day, Sega used to make consoles alongside Nintendo. Now, where is Sega right now? Well, because they stopped making those systems, and now that they focused on a lot of their good IPs like Sonic, Persona, Like a Dragon, Alien Isolation, and God knows what else, they have finally managed to kind of come back, claw themselves up to like actual serious relevance, and it's a great thing. And I think if Xbox has to survive, they kind of have to go this weird Sega route where, first and most importantly, you have to cut with a company like Microsoft. And the other reality of it too is that there's even been talks right now that Xbox is closing down more and more of their like studios and more of their teams, which is insane, right? Like, it doesn't matter if like the richest tech company in the world basically owns you. If you're not making good money, if you're not making more than, you know, what it costs to keep you active, they will just slice you. They will just trim you down and use whatever money they spend on you to fuel the AI industry and the dragon they're fucking chasing right now. That's what's going on, okay? That's the harsh reality of the situation. It doesn't matter who the fucking CEO of Microsoft is. Having all of these IPs that they bought that are basically sitting there dormant while the company just like tweedles its thumbs to figure out what they do is not a good play to have. You know, it's similar to places like Embracer Group, where ultimately, at the end of the day, they bought a bunch of IPs that we all love. IPs like Deus Ex, for instance, and some of these Deus Ex games that they were working on were just canceled because Embracer Group was like, they don't see a path to like making money out of it. I hate the fact that some of these companies have consolidated so many of our beloved IPs and so many gaming teams that ultimately, at the end of the day, it seems like we get less and less of what we used to get, right? It seems like we get less and less of these focused game releases and more of these AAA releases that ultimately either fail or, you know, the company rolls them into some live service crap that is also destined to mostly fail in every capacity. You know, I think the worst thing to happen to the gaming industry is like, you know, you get like a bunch of these scumbag, like fucking business-minded like people to come in. They have no interest in gaming whatsoever. They just look at, you know, the next big game IP and they're like, all right, release a game, put a battle pass in it, put like every form of monetization, and see how that rolls by for the average gamer, right? Like combining an artistic industry with like a shopping mall mindset where somebody purchases a video game, comes in and installs it, and the first thing they get barraged with is what more can they buy in a game they probably haven't even fucking launched. or like actually haven't like seen gameplay of yet. That is an insane fucking way to go down. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I think for a company like Microsoft, they need to just chop off Xbox. Xbox needs to fly in its own direction. They need to go off. They need to carry these IPs that they have under their belt. It's obviously very unrealistic. Microsoft would probably shutter everything before they even think of giving up the Xbox IP and letting it roam free. But if you want this brand to survive, okay, if you want Xbox to really survive, the fucking dragon that governs it needs to leave it alone, okay? You know, this is why I've been so restricted on talking about it. I wanted to wait until good information was solid, but the more good information that comes out about Xbox, the more bad information that comes out about Xbox too. And where does that all tie into? It's the fucking leadership around them. Microsoft is doing basically everything they can to hamper the entire Xbox division. You know, these people are competing with the same business, the same industry that is putting them into the fucking ground, right? Kind of in a way. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, you know what, Xbox, I really do wish the best for it, simply because it has been such an important part of my teenage years, my childhood, that to kind of see it in the state that it is, it's fucking sad. It really is, right? Like, a lot of these big gaming companies are in sad positions in some way, in some respects. But Xbox is probably arguably in the worst of it, to the point where even if they leave the hardware race, which I don't want to see that, but it might be the only way for them to kind of survive, is to just focus on the games that they have, get these budgets down to like normal, reasonable amounts, and actually release these games in a proper format, you know, actually release these games in a timely manner, right? You know, nobody's going to be interested in gaming franchises that release every 5 or 6 years, you know? Like, you got to be releasing these pretty actively. You got to be releasing these, you know, on a pretty consistent basis, and ultimately that involves in like taking the scope of these games and like narrowing them down so that they're focused, fun, great experiences, and make your fucking money, right? Like, I hate to be bringing Sega back into this in every capacity, but ultimately for me, some of the best games that I've played in the